Silicon Valley, technology, art, green, and sustainability.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability, SVTAGS. Today with me, I have Cheri Del Carlo. I'm so honored to have you with me today. And we're going to be talking about your dad's art. And he's a photographer. They call him Del, but his name's Arnold?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And Arnold Del Carlo. So his work is amazing, and you're going to talk about that in a bit. But before we look at the art and talk about his work, tell us a little bit about you. You have such an interesting background.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Heather, for having me on your show. This is quite a thrill to be here. A little bit about myself. I mean, you know, I'm from the area, from the South Bay area. My folks still live in the house that I grew up in. You know, basically, from a child, you know, actually, all of my siblings, we all have photographs of our entire lives.
How many
given
siblings
that my father's, there's 5 of us.
5, okay.
So given that my father's a, you know, retired professional photographer, you know, his entire life pretty much, we have photos of everything. So
and then,
not a moment missed.
And then you have just recently lived around the world. Tell us a little bit about that. You
I
were
got
Paraguay?
Uruguay.
I always want to say Paraguay.
Yeah, I got to live abroad for a little while, for about a year, which was fun and interesting. Got to work a couple part-time jobs at a U.S. embassy there in Uruguay in the main city of Montevideo. And then after that, moved to Washington, D.C. and was there for about a year and a half. And then just this last fall, moved back to the Bay Area.
And in your background, you did marketing, correct?
I did. I dabbled in social media marketing, actually.
Okay.
So,
and I heard you were very good at it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
From several
you know,
people.
Folks still reach out to me today asking, "Hey, are you still doing social media marketing?" And I say, "Well, you know, no, I've moved on to my other career path." So I always end up referring, you know, a friend or two to help out with those small projects that come up still.
Which is really great.
Yeah.
And then, so your dad's work, we're looking behind us, and we'll see some slides in a bit. He was a photographer, and how long was he a photographer? And does he still do that, I should ask, too?
So he has slowed down quite a bit. He is 95 years old. He's going to be 96 in June.
Wow.
He still
and he's still driving, and
they're still driving, still doing their same things, just at a much slower pace, as you can imagine. But he started off doing photography, I think, in his early teens, while living in St. Paul, Minnesota, growing up there. You know, built a dark room in the basement of his parents' home. So it was really a hobby of his. And really, he's one of those few people that had a passion for something and got to live it out as a career, build a career out of it, and you know, had a thriving business.
And
here.
he went to college for it, and then
Actually,
did he study?
No, he self-studied entirely. So he's won many awards over the years. I think one of his big ones was he was awarded as master photographer by the American Photography Association, and you know, we still have lots of trophies around the house and all that good stuff. So he had a studio here in Silicon Valley in Santa Clara for over 30 years, and retired right as the digital age was coming on. But basically, you know, photography has been a really big part of Silicon Valley.
And so does he still, as a hobby, do a little photography, or not at all?
No, he still has his cameras. He does a little bit, you know, nearly not like what he used to. You know, he loved being able to take pictures and then go upstairs to his computer and print the photo. So the funny thing was that, well, Dad, you know, it's digital now. We don't really take print photos. We email them to each other, and he never really got to that part. He was thrilled to just be able to take a digital camera and go print out, you know, an image that he just took. You know, he'd mess with the color or fix the eyes and that kind of thing. And
there's so many different categories of photographers? Did he do weddings? Did he do corporate? Did he do the whole
Oh, he did the whole
gamut?
thing. So
Okay.
commercial photographer, through and through, weddings, portraits, commercial, aerials.
Real estate, probably, everything.
Oh yeah, everything, yes.
Yeah, interesting. So Color by the Bay, which is what's behind us, and it's just so beautiful. I've seen postcards and on the web, to see this in person it's just beautiful. Tell us about this and what this was. And actually, let's pull up a photo of your dad too, really quick.
Okay,
Sorry.
sure.
So let's pull this photo up of the first photo of her dad. Tell us about the photo.
So this is of my father. Actually, another gentleman, another photographer, took this photo of my father, and it was actually his last flight in the plane. He sold the plane shortly thereafter. I think what was happening is he wasn't able to pass some of the exams for hearing, but otherwise he would still be flying today if they were going to be continuing to grant him his license, his pilot's license. But I mean, he flew a small plane like that ever since I was born.
So you got to fly with him a lot.
Oh yeah, we flew a lot. Yeah, definitely. That was a lot of fun. And he cut a hole in the floor of his plane. So that's where he would, position his Hasselblad cameras, and then have a long cord to be snapping.
So that was going to be my question. So how did he take the photos if he was driving the plane?
Yeah, so flying, and then, but he typically always had another person with him in the plane. He rarely, in fact, it was like emergency situation where, a few times where he had to go up by himself and do that. And believe me, he was very stressed out about doing it. But he always had another person in the plane doing it with them. And then he would shoot orthogonally through, or not orthogonally, but through the plane windows, but mostly just straight down through the floor, through the floor of the plane.
And so Color by the Sea, again, is the name?
Color by the Bay.
Color by the Bay.
Yes, so this is a collection of images that he was not commissioned to do. He, again, being a photographer, and a pilot, he noticed that the colors coming up from the South Bay area, when the salt ponds were still very active and salt was still being harvested, of course, if you know much about what happens in these ponds, the colors change. So, of course, being an artist, he just went one day in the mid-'80s and flew over them for about 20 minutes and probably clicked off over 100 images of these salt flats, and also at a very low altitude.
So let's pull up the first slide. We have some behind us too, but let's pull up the first slide of the salt ponds. So I like the title of this, the womb. It's funny because when you look at the photos on screen and then you look at it on the TV, and then the different screens change the colors too. So when I pulled the photo from one place and put it in the other, this to me looks like purples and whites, and this is just great.
Pull this down, and it's good that you pulled that one up first, because actually that's the one right behind you.
This is the same one. Okay.
Yeah, that's the print.
Can we get a close up of this too? I don't know so we'll see how it looks from photo. Do I need to? We can get a close up on that.
Yeah.
So it looks different from the digital image to this. I mean, this is so beautiful. Yeah.
Right. And so let me clarify a little bit. So the original photographs, the negatives, are film.
Okay.
My father digitized them and enhanced the color just a little bit. So you're going to get a richer version, of what is in the original negative. So to your point, when you look at it on different screens, it's going to change. But we had these printed. This is a Gicleé form of printing, and it's on canvas. And these are premium quality prints, so these are going to last a long time.
So Gicleé, is it a brand, or is it the type?
It's a type of inkjet printing onto canvas.
Okay.
So it's a computerized inkjet print onto canvas.
It's great. And then these are wrapped. Well, these are wrapped here.
And they're gallery wrapped.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So it's really nice. So what inspired them then? He saw that there was this different colors, but what actually inspired him to do like a series on these, basically?
Well, he had this collection, in his archives since the mid-'80s, and it wasn't until probably about 6 years ago that both my mother and father said, we really ought to do something with these photographs. My father's never really taken his work and put it out there as art. So this is an unusual collection in that he really does want to see it out there as art. And these are very abstract images, and they would work really well. You know, we've got them at
some
these
of them look like
particular
Pollock
sizes.
paintings or something, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they don't like it. At first, you're like, wait, that's actually a real thing. It doesn't look.
These are photographs. Yeah, they're not. It's not a painting, you know, and they are very abstract. I don't know if you can see this one behind me, but this is there's an electricity tower, one of the towers still, you know,
and let's pull up another slide, because I think this is in the slides too, so we can talk about it on the slides.
Yes.
Let's pull another slide up, guys. I don't know if they're. There we go. So this one here, I love this. I'd love to have a small copy of this one.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, is it?
I love Red Tide.
The green and the red is just, I mean, it kind of looks like you're on Mars or something, or some other worldly place. I mean, it doesn't look like it's, you know,
so
like it's real.
The print of that is, we decided to make that print the largest, and it's probably 36 by 42 inches.
Okay. So bigger than this.
Bigger than these.
Yeah, and bigger than the sign here.
And there's even tires in the water. You can see, and you can. There's ripples in the water that you can see in that particular image. It's really a neat image. I like it a lot.
So tell us a little bit more deeper about the salt ponds and what happened. I know a little of the history, but for people that maybe don't know any of the history, or tell us a little deeper history on the salt ponds and why this is actually really important that it was preserved and what it looked like. And
yeah, so again, these were when salt was being harvested by Cargill Corporation. I think that they still own and harvest some of the salt pond areas. Much of it has been returned to restoration efforts. So I think the Don Edwards, you know, Bay Area water restoration projects.
The bird and water, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of these have been restored to their natural habitats, which is great.
Right, and if nobody's been to the new bird sanctuary where they've restored it, it's just really beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful out there.
Yeah,
it's so peaceful and serene, and it's just really interesting to see the water life that's out there and what this area really originally was. But there was really nothing like this. This was one of the biggest salt production areas in the United States, actually, because of the way, you know, the bottom of the bay with the salt water coming in, and the low, you know, it was not very deep at all. So it was just kind of a natural, perfect place. But again, much of it's been restored. But then these images capture what was there, this man-made, you know, with nature, you know, and then what happens also with the colors between the salinity, the concentration of salinity, and the algae in the water. That's what causes all these different colors and variations.
So behind you, that's probably dried. It's probably dried then, right? That's basically what it is. It's the salt that's dried and ready to be harvested.
So yes and no. Actually, I think this one is a one where they're in processes of harvesting it, because you can see the lines
of them coming in and raking it.
Right, whereas this is probably an area that maybe it's still, you know, this is probably very salty, to your point, and then it's still kind of maybe evaporating down here.
You wouldn't want to get dunked into that.
You wouldn't want to get dunked into it, no.
Yeah, so let's pull up another slide. I think we probably have 10 more slides. So let's pull this one up, and this is great too. Fractal.
Yeah. I mean,
and the colors just, again, they look unreal. You know, it doesn't. Let's pull that down and pull another one up really quick. Let's pull one more up. There we go. So this is kind of gives you a perspective of the whole area. And this was more South Bay. They did this in San Carlos too, or is this part of San Carlos, or do you know which area it was?
So the Alviso area, I mean, literally like the very bottom of the bay where they were harvesting. So Alviso area, possibly San Carlos. I don't think, I know that there still
there was salt ponds there. Thank you for pulling that down. There was salt ponds, but I don't remember what year they removed it. And then of course, near Oakland and Marin, there were salt ponds in several areas, right? But then they started getting rid of that, which is good because they've restored it to its natural.
Yes.
Do you want to have, let's see, first off, where can people see these? I know you have something coming up, right?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So these actually, the 12 prints that we have selected out of the 41, and I actually have a book also that my father made of the 41 images that he did take that day, the photographs. In May and June, so for 2 months, at the Saratoga Public Library, these 12 prints will be on display. So you
Awesome.
can go up and look at them up close and see what you think. If you have any questions, we'll have contact information there, but delcarlostudios.com is where you can find our email addresses and any questions. And
will your dad be there for a talk at all, or?
well, I don't know if he quite has the energy for that these days. So, maybe we'll get something going, as we get closer to the 2 months. That when we put them on display, maybe I'll get him to,
Well, and then in the summer, later, or maybe later this year, if he'd be interested, we'd be happy to do a meetup with him. So I think we have about 10,000 people on our email list, and our meetup group's about 500 right now.
Oh yeah.
And last year we only did a couple, but we were doing, I think, 12 a month at one point. So it would be great at some point. Maybe we can even ask Montalvo to let us do something up there in the little artist retreat area. That would be really fun.
That would be really fun.
Yeah. So we'll have to ask him about that and see if he'd be interested.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there specific areas that you think that this would be a good market for people to have them? Are you looking for people in corporations, or where would you think this would be a good fit?
So one thing I'd like to try out is reach out to other folks in the Bay Area that are all about preserving the Bay. I know that there are a couple of organizations out there, including the Don Edwards. They take donations and so forth, as well as the other organizations, Save the Bay, and potentially partner, such that proceeds could also go then toward these organizations for preserving the Bay. We have brought these to market and shown them at a few of the artist shows here locally in the Bay Area. In fact, the Saratoga Rotary Art Show and things like that. But yes, my mother keeps saying to me, Cheri, look at these catalogs of home decor. Look at that picture. Can't you just see, one of these being up there? So, kind of the market is the gamut, but really these do deserve to be on big. They need big space because they're large images. They look really good printed out in large pieces.
So any commercial real estate people out there, or
right.
new developers, check these out. They're really cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Are you interested in photography, and are you an artist?
So I took photography in college, and when I turned to my father for his help, it was, he's such a perfectionist that he would say, move over, Cheri, let me do this. So,
do you like doing photography or art? Or?
I do. I growing up with it, you learn a lot of small tricks that make a big difference. And I always employ them. In fact, when I did social media, it was very helpful for me to employ a lot of the tactics that my father taught me, including even capturing video. So,
does he teach people, or did he teach people, and would he teach people? Is it something that he may be interested in doing still, and then did he do it, I guess?
I don't think he did do a lot of teaching. I think he was really pretty busy running his studio. I mean, after all, he had, to feed and clothe and so forth, 5 kids, and they built their home, out in Saratoga area, and he was pretty busy. So he didn't do a lot of teaching. And I don't know if he would have the energy to teach now these days.
So, and that kind of brings me back to the Montalvo issue. I've been going to these quarterly events they have with artist educators, artists, different people that have done installations at Montalvo, people that have lived at the artist retreats up there. I think they have 10 dorms up there now and cottages. And there's a movement now for STEAM instead of STEM, to bring art back into the schools too, because as you and I know, when we were kids in the 80s, we were lucky enough to have that in school. It was just a given thing. Right. But unless you're a wealthier community now, they don't usually have art. And so there's a lot of organizations, Montalvo and other organizations, that are pushing to bring, instead of STEAM, you're having the A back in there or STEAM instead of STEM.
Right.
And so again, I think Montalvo, they like to have artists up too that are kind of making a statement, and this shows, what happened to salt ponds, and then you can show the contrast of bringing it back. So that could be a good opportunity.
Definitely.
Does he do commission work? Is he still doing?
Oh no, he's long retired. He'll tell you stories. He'll get his other books. Actually in World War II, he was in the Army and went to Europe, and they put a camera in his hands then, and he has a lot of photography from that, and he'll tell you stories.
So did he do a book on that yet?
He did. He did. It's not published. It's just kind of one of the things where you go and you put your own images up, and then you order it, and they send you a book.
Really great.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
So what's been the biggest challenge to date? And I guess this would be for him and for you as far as trying to sell art. And then how are you overcoming that? Or anything else you want to talk about too, as far as challenges.
Yeah, so, well, I have never sold art, so definitely a challenge in learning about the best way to bring this collection to market. So I'm open to meeting with others who might have, ideas or even to partner. Like I mentioned, I would love for a portion of the proceeds to go toward restoration of the bay. So those are some challenges that, I'm looking at.
So again, it would be great to have an opening there at the bay, at the new bird center and what have you. That would be a really interesting thing. Yep. So what's been the biggest accolade for you then so far?
With regard to this collection of work?
It's up to you. If it could be personal or it could be working with your dad. Yeah.
Well, I think getting to bring this collection out it's been a project that my family's been working on for a little while. So to be able to bring this out again is exciting. And for example, to be on your show. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
And for these to go on display at the Saratoga Public Library, it's exciting. I'm hoping to put out a press release, so I'll be learning about the best way to do that.
It's awesome. I can't wait to see them all at the public library. Let's bring up another slide now. I think we're behind on bringing the slides up. So this is the one that's behind you. Tell us again, and for the audience, what's at the bottom there?
So, okay. It's the way. At the bottom on what's on the screen now is actually an electricity tower. It's a tower, and then you can see the shadow. So
it's not a radio tower; it's an electrical tower.
Well,
wow.
I'm not sure if it's a radio tower or an electricity tower. It's a tower constructed that's probably got wires,
and it looks like a toothpick.
It does look like a toothpick, yeah. So obviously he's straight up and down over that image. Then with the sun at an angle, it's got the shadow of the tower.
And then it looks like it's an art piece where somebody's just, taken chalk or something, but that's actually where they were processing the salt.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's pull that down and bring the next one up too. So this one I just love too, with all the colors. You got the reds, the greens, the yellows, and it looks like purple. It's just so beautiful. It doesn't look like it's something from this planet. It looks otherworldly. Let's bring the next one up again. This one I really love too, with the purples. I'm looking for the dragon though, I can't see it. Still looking. Let's bring the next one up. And then the terracotta, this is just beautiful. Let's see, do we have one more we can bring up? And this is awesome too. And let's pull that down. So you're looking for places to place this. Where would be your ideal places again? Maybe Actera. Have you thought of Actera? It used to be Saved by the Bay and another organization, and now it's Actera. That's another place that would probably be really great for you guys.
Oh yes, perfect.
Is there something the community can help you with?
Gosh, well, I went in Santa Cruz. There are the Artist Open Studios, and I saw this one artist that took art like this, and then she layered on top of it some interesting, so I thought, wow, how cool could that be to take some of this work and let another artist layer on top of it whatever they want, whatever they thought that, would just bring the image or just make more of a statement out of it. So that could be something to, play around with there.
Well, I have a friend that's been wanting to take me up in his plane. So I think that we need to go up and take some images now. And there could be some side by side and have your dad talk about that. That would be really cool.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah, that would be an interesting Montalvo thing.
Yes.
If there's one thing that you want people to remember about the work, what would it be? Or one thing you'd want to remember about your dad's legacy of work?
Wow. Just how diverse it is. I mean, his collection spans since the late 40s here in the Valley. In fact, a large collection of it is now over with the Sorso Academy at San Jose State University. And with these images in particular, just kind of how otherworldly, I think that was a great, term that you used to describe them.
you mentioned Santa Cruz First Fridays. What about San Jose, which they have, and I think Campbell has one too.
Right.
Have you contacted them as well, and is that something that would
we were on the verge of doing that a couple years ago. I think I was getting ready to do my live abroad thing. So one of my sisters and I were kind of heading up, getting out to the art shows, and so I think when that opportunity came up, I was about to move on to another adventure, so to speak, and so we'll probably look at doing that again soon, definitely.
And then I think, do we have any more of the slides? We can pull up another slide if there's one more of the, I think we might have got, yep, this one. I think this is the last one. This actually shows on the right somewhere that it's installed.
Correct. So the image on the right was at the Saratoga Rotary Art Show.
Oh, okay. And your dad had an exhibit there then?
Yes.
And then the one on the left, this is just beautiful, the blue craze.
And that is this image right
here. Oh,
here.
and that's so interesting. So let's look at that for a second, and now if we can get a close-up of this one here, let's pull that down. Can we get a close-up of the one behind her, which is the same? So it's interesting how they look so different in person as opposed to on the screen.
Definitely, yes.
And I don't know if we can get a close-up of it. There we go. Yeah, so this is the same one that was just on the, it's very interesting.
Yeah, you really do need to see these up close and in person, because there are things in there that you can't see by just sort of looking at them, from a more general perspective.
Yeah, I'm looking at this too, and now I'm seeing some more things I didn't see just from the print. Is there any last thoughts for the audience too? We have just a couple minutes left.
Oh gosh. Would love any feedback on, these images, whether, how it makes people feel or what they think about it, or ideas, to maybe bring these out into the market a little bit more, give them more exposure. We are selling them. They are available to purchase. We only print one at a time though. So of the 12 images that we have printed, there are, as I mentioned, this book of 41 other images. So if someone even wanted to see the rest of the images, we can certainly do that.
And you could custom print them for
Custom
them
print,
in various sizes,
yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and to the audience, thank you for joining us. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, SVTAGS.org is our website, and make this a great week by conserving, reusing, and rethinking the way you choose to live here in Silicon Valley and beyond. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.